Welcome, inquirers, to a special edition of the Podcast for Inquiry. I'm speaking today with Matt Farrell, who is a candidate for the Toronto District School Board trustee in the riding of Toronto-Danforth. The election takes place on October 24th, 2022. And thank you for joining me today, Matt.
Thank you for having me, Leslie.
So I've taken a look at your website and you're running for trustee, and you have four major planks in your policy
hmm
platform, three of which are pretty standard based on what I've seen from other candidates who are running for trustee. But one of them is, as far as I'm aware, unique. And it's the first time I have seen a trustee running for the public school board come up with this particular position. And so that's what I want to focus our conversation on today. And you want to merge, you have come out publicly to say that you want to merge Ontario's public and separate school systems. So I want to ask you, this is not something that any other trustee candidate has come forward with. What inspired you? Why do you want to do this? Why is this one of your four major planks in your platform?
For me, when you look at any of the issues that really any of the trustees are campaigning for across the province, they're all very similar. As you said, three of my pillars they're quite similar, and in the end, we're all looking for things like smaller class sizes. We're looking at social justice issues. We're looking for ways to fix our schools, all those sorts of things. But almost every single one of those issues boils down to a common denominator of money. And as much as every trustee is going to go and say, I'll absolutely stand up against cuts, and any future cuts, I'm going to try to resist those. In the end, there is going to be a big challenge with money between the school boards and the province. So where I'm coming from on this is that there is a lot of existing money in the province right now going into education. So I'm by no means saying it's enough, but I'm saying there's a lot of it. And I think it can be used much more efficiently if there are not two separate school boards being funded, often running concurrent and duplicate administrations, services, and stuff like that. And so therefore, the amount of bang for your buck, if you will, that you can get on a per pupil funding can go much further, and it can address a lot of those issues that we're all fighting for if there's only one board that's being funded.
So why do you believe, and you seem quite sincere, that it would save money? Like, we have the same number of students, regardless of whether we have a public or private school, or sorry, public or separate school board. We're still going to have the same number of teachers. If you succeed in one of your other planks that you just mentioned about reducing class sizes, we're going to need even more teachers. The Regardless of whether it's a Catholic school board or the public school board. So why do you think that you're going to get a significant amount of savings? I'm assuming that when you say more money, you mean savings. Where will the savings come from if indeed we just have one publicly funded school system for each official language in the province?
There's been a number of different studies, and it's been looked at in a number of different ways where you could get those savings. One of the largest ones, it came out in 2012. It was from the Federation of Urban Neighborhoods. And when they looked at, and this is 2012 dollars, they were thinking you could save up to 1.6 billion annually across the province. So one of the things I'm proposing is that was a study from 10 years ago. That's fine. There are opportunities to say, is that necessarily applicable now? So one of the first things I want to do is, led by the TDSB, do a new study. Let's really go and look at it. Let's make sure this study is rock solid. It is completely can stand up against scrutiny. And then from there, let's really look at where those savings are, so that previous study, we can go and bring an updated version of it. And from there, we'll be able to promote the idea across the province.
This is a topic that I've talked about with other people in other contexts a fair amount. And I've encountered quite a lot of resistance to the idea that we should merge that. One of them is uh, there are other priorities. We have an education system that is still reeling from COVID. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to make our schools both safe and educationally effective as we're going back to school. As we record this, school is about to start tomorrow in the Toronto District School Board. And even under the most rosy scenario, this is a massive undertaking in terms of logistics, in terms of teacher contracts, in terms of new geographies for how they are going to be administered. Is this really a priority given all the other issues that are urgent that need to be tackled in the education system in Ontario today?
I think so many of the issues that you spoke of and that everybody is speaking of, as I said before, it relates to money. Money will definitely help lift up all those issues. It will help give resources to the issues. And if the existing money can be used more efficiently, then a lot of these issues are able to be addressed. Now, is this going to be hard? Absolutely. It's going to be incredibly hard. There's going to be a ton of logistical challenges in it. It will be a transition, but we shouldn't just say, let's not do this because it's hard, or let's not do it because it'll be a change and people don't like change. These two things need to be embraced and brought forward to say, when we're out of this, when we're done the transition, we will have a single school board that is going to be operating much more efficiently than the two separate school boards are right now.
And you're saying that the study that you want to do will confirm that there will be savings, because it sounds every time company A takes over company B, we hear about cost savings and synergies and so on, and they're not often realized. Uh, what makes you more optimistic that merging school boards will be more successful in terms of saving money than when two companies merge?
And I think even more applicable equivalent to that is what happened when all the various municipalities across the province ended up merging, especially the mega city in Toronto. Everybody said that should save money, or at least the people who put that in place said that that should save money. Whether or not did that save money or not, I think a lot of people would say no, it didn't. But I think the big difference between those two things happening is when you look at a lot of these different types of merges, it is something that is not endorsed by the majority. If we look at the idea of the mega city, most people were against that. So there wasn't a lot of groundswell of support from the rank and file in order to be able to make this happen. However, if we look at the idea of merging two school boards, there is going to be a good chunk of the individuals who will be on the ground working on that, who would be in favor of it, and then from then that simple buy-in from the beginning will help implement whatever it is that the plans of this study may say.
Well, approximately one third or so of the student body in Ontario goes to the separate school board. Approximately two-thirds go to the public school board. I would imagine, although I haven't seen specific studies about this, that the two-thirds of Ontarians whose families are part of the public school board would be quite in favor of this change that you are proposing, and the one-third of Ontario households, give or take a few percent, that go to the Catholic school boards would be uh, opposed to it, and certainly a subset of those Catholic school attendees would be quite vehemently and passionately opposed. Do you think you'd be able to overcome that opposition and still make this merger, should it proceed, a successful one?
That opposition has been described to me and others as the third rail of Ontario politics. No party, except for the Greens, want to touch that, don't want to address it. They look at what has happened in the past with John Tory in 2008, 7, 8, when he started to look at the idea of moving around funding.
I remember that well.
Yeah,
It astonished me. John Tory, the current mayor of Toronto, at the time was the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario, and it was I believe, the third or possibly fourth day of the campaign. And I can't recall a time when someone has drawn the completely wrong conclusion from absolutely accurate premises. He said publicly that Ontario's school system was discriminatory on its face, with only one religious group receiving full funding and every other religious denomination in the province getting nothing. from the province in terms of funding, that we had been condemned by the United Nations more than once on this, and that wasn't fair, and that something needed to change. And his conclusion was that every religious denomination would get funding where numbers warrant, so that we would have a multiplicity of religiously based schools. So various Protestant denominations, presumably Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, and so on. And the Ontario populace hated that. It was the most dramatic political self-immolation I think I've ever seen. He handed the entire election over to the Liberals, that Dalton McGuinty at the time, right at the start of the campaign. Uh, but it would be interesting if he had drawn a different conclusion and came to the same one that you have come to, that we really should have a single publicly funded school system for all Ontarians for each official language, whether it would have been different. Do you have any insights as to whether uh, Ontarians would have reacted differently had he drawn a different conclusion from his premises?
It's on my website. I forget the number, but there was a study done asking Ontarians, the entire population right across the province, would you be in favor of a merged system? And I believe the number was around 80% were in favor of it. So even if you look at the ratios of how many would go to students go to Catholic school versus public school, even those kind of skew a little bit towards the idea of merging it. However, in part because of what happened to John Tory during that election, as well as just a desire not to touch this, not to look at it. As I said, no party really wants to look at it. So this is where some people may say, is it even within the school board's jurisdiction? Is it, or even their business to go and try to push
That
this?
was that you
Yeah,
anticipated my
yeah,
next
yeah,
question. I was going to say, are you you're a public you're going on the Toronto District School Board, part of the publicly
yep.
funded
Mm-hmm.
system. Isn't this a little bit outside of your mandate as a public school board trustee to try and remove the Catholic school board? Because you'll have a
Yeah,
counterpart, at least geographically, overlapping jurisdiction, where there'll be a Toronto Catholic District
that's
School
right.
Board trustee, and there's someone running in the Toronto-Danforth for the Catholic School Board system. So, is this just a case of overweening ambition, where you want to expand your mandate, or do you have are you an anti-Catholic bigot and want to destroy their educational system?
Absolutely not, and nothing like that. But if you look at the main, one of the principles of what a trustee is to look out for the well-being of the students. And the best way to look out for the well-being of students is to make sure that the money that is being spent on the students is being spent as efficiently as possible. And because no party wants to make this an election issue, the only way it will become an election issue is if the public wants it to become an election issue. And this is where I'm proposing that first it will start at the Toronto District School Board, where the study will happen. Hopefully, the results of the study will be what we want them to be. From there, it would be endorsed. From there, we take it to the Greater Association of School Boards of Public School Boards of Ontario, get a greater endorsement there, and then push that out then to all the other school boards. Hopefully, by that time, we're starting to get a lot of media attention about this.
So can
Yep.
you give me a timeline on this? Like this sounds like a
Yep.
lot of work,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a big change,
Yep.
so it will be a lot of work.
Yep.
But are we talking 6 months, 1 year, 10 years? Like how long will this process that you're outlining take?
While it will not be a linear process, the ideal goal is for at the next provincial election in 4 years' time that it is something that absolutely is on the ticket. It is something that each political party, whether they want to or not, are going to have to take a stance on it one way or not, because there has been a groundswell of support on it from the public. Again, ultimately led by all the school boards, public school boards across the province, looking for a better use of the money that they're getting.
So I've noticed a consistent theme when you've stated your motivations for this. It has been financial,
Mm-hmm.
that we can save a lot, and and the study that will quantify, but it's your belief that we'll be able to save a lot of money by merging the school systems. Those that have been publicly arguing for a single publicly funded school system, Ontario, also bring in moral arguments. So I alluded to earlier that it is, and even John Tory at the time acknowledged that it is discriminatory to fund one religious denomination, Catholicism in Ontario's case, while not funding anybody else. And in order to be fair, you either have to fund everybody, which John Tory proposed, or nobody. There's also been some pretty loud objections to some of the tenets that are taught in Catholic schools. Whether a few years ago, the objection to the Safe Schools Act, which, among many other things, uh, said that there had to be gay-straight alliances allowed, and because to that point they were strictly banned, and some of Catholicism's teachings on the role of women in the world and their position on homosexuality. Many people find, to put it mildly, objectionable, and should not be receiving direct funding by the government. You haven't mentioned any of these moral or ethical reasons. I'm wondering, do those resonate with you, or is your motivation strictly financial and wanting to save money, which can then be reallocated more directly towards the student's benefit?
They do go hand in hand. The focus absolutely is on the financial side. I think that there, in terms of being able to deal with a lot of the immediate needs and needs ultimately throughout the next 4 years, that will be something that will be able to help things out. But everything you spoke of, the declaration by the United Nations in 1999, I think it was, that said Ontario's school system, because of its funding, is discriminatory. Yes, that is absolutely an issue. When you look at a lot of the teachings of the Catholic school, that is a very big issue. It's a very big issue for me, and it's also a very big issue for a lot of the residents in the ward. When you're looking at the more traditional stances that they'll take against homosexuality and other social issues like that, and that is something that to have public money go in to support those things, that does not work out well for a lot of people too. Am I focusing on that? No, I'm not. Part of the reason is to simplify message, to be honest with you, but that does by no means diminishes any of those other things at all.
All right. Well, Matt Farrell, running for the Toronto District School Board trustee in Toronto-Danforth.
That's right.
For those of you who are in the Toronto-Danforth area, you can check out his website at mattfarrell.vote. For those of you in Ontario, we will be having municipal elections, including school board trustees. And if this is an issue that is important to you, please feel free to ask your candidates for trustee, both public and Catholic, how they feel about merging public school boards. Matt Farrell, any last thoughts?
I just want to say thank you very much. And if anybody has anything they want to reach out to me about, all my contact information is on my website, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody about anything.
Well, thank you for joining me today on this special episode of Podcast for Inquiry.
Thank you very much, Leslie.